It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, we're continuing to analyze the draft prospects for the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft being held in Green Bay this April. In this episode, we'll discuss the prospects at the interior offensive line positions. We're talking about the guards today, and this year's class appears to have good depth. This is a position that the Detroit Lions will likely address either for depth or for a possible starter. Will that player get drafted this year by Brad Holmes? We'll discuss that and more next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Oh, that's like the $150 question today. Welcome, everybody, to Sports Peninsula Podcast. My name is Dave Brzezinski Drew. I'm joined by Coach Andy Shield of the Marine City Mariners. And Coach, how you doing today?
Doing well, Drew. Doing well. The NFL season has concluded with the Super Bowl now being in the books. The Philadelphia Eagles are champions of the world, dethroning the Kansas City Chiefs. Looked like right out of the gates. They were talking, the fix was in. The first big call went the way of the Chiefs, but the game went the other way right away. But, we saw a spectacular defensive effort by the Philadelphia Eagles with just a tremendously invested defense. I mean, that team was built through their drafts on defense. Really via the University of Georgia by and large, by a lot of pieces at least that are over there. So I mean, just goes to show you. I think we're going to be talking about some guys down the road. The Lions probably could use a page out of that book a little bit. Maybe it's time to get the defense arsenal rubbed up. But Drew, 33 and a half. You know what 33 and a half means?
A 33.
I think it's a record speed.
Well, a 33 and a third was a record speed, but okay, I don't know. I don't know what 33 and a half is. What would that be?
That's the average age of the Lions starting guards.
Ooh, and that's the wrong side of 30 in the NFL. That's for sure.
Probably about 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe, just maybe, we were talking about a position tonight that is of importance. What do you think, Drew?
Absolutely. Now, again, like I said in the intro, is it going to be addressed through the draft? Could be. Likely will be. Will it be day 1 or 2? Could be. Don't know. But again, we're going to talk that through. It's a position group they no doubt they have to address just for the simple fact of what you brought up. That Glasgow and Zeitler's a free agent. So they may have a vacancy there. Now, they have Christian Mahogany on the roster, of course, and he started some games and he played well. So that's great. Future's bright for him. Glasgow's under contract another year. We know he can play any interior line position, including center, but he's getting long in tooth as well. And it would be nice maybe to take some workload off him. I don't know. Maybe they think he can go at left guard again. No problem. We'll see. But it's going to be fun to talk about, Coach.
We got a few guards on the roster, and I think we do know we have a future in Christian Mahogany. Kevin Zeitler's got to determine whether or not he wants to play, and if he wants to play for the Detroit Lions. I think there's a very strong likelihood that they could reunite. If he decides that he's had enough football, that might be the case. He's a Wisconsin native. I don't know if he would want to think about ever going to finish things up at the Pack. But I know it's a real tight-knit family, and they were here a lot. But that would be great. If they did that, I think it would lessen the pressure on it a little bit, Drew, on the position group a little bit, because I think we do have Christian Mahogany. We have Iowa Sika. Yeah. Maybe. He could also be going to Chicago or the New York Jets or one of these other places as well via free agency. And we have Big Manu. That it will be more of a factor this year as well. He did play guard at the college level, might very well be moving out to tackle at his size. So is there some space to draft a guard? There is. Are we talking day 1, day 2, or day 3? That is the question I think we're looking for still.
It certainly is. And let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it, Coach. Let's talk about our top 20 prospects at the guard positions. Who we got?
Well, starting at 20 in the bottom right corner to going up to number 1 with Tyler Booker in the upper left. Got a couple of locals to start things out. Our second Western Michigan Bronco offensive lineman that we'll have talked about so far. We talked about Mr. Gideon a little bit and some depth. He was one of our dark horses. Addison West ranks our 20th guard in the book, so that could be a Lion that they look to on day 3. At 19, Luke Newman of Michigan State, Drew.
Yep.
At 18, Clarkston High School graduate Garrett Dellinger from LSU. So we're staying in the state of Michigan, the first 3 guys, although Mr. Dellinger played for his ball down in Baton Rouge. At 17 is Hayden Connor out of Texas. I think you're going to be talking about him here in a bit. You have Charles Grant still filling in from William and Mary, offensive tackle, also filling in at guard. He is in at 16, so an impressive guy there. Over at a 15, Jonah Monheim out of USC. Name might be somewhat familiar. We talked about him at center. He is in on the guard board as well. Jonah Savanaia out of Arizona. That's a guy that we're going to be talking about as a dark horse. He is an interesting prospect as a guard tackle combo. Willie Lampkin out of North Carolina. Really highly thought of prospect. Over in at 12 is Jared Wilson out of Georgia. We talked about him as a center. That's an intriguing prospect. Very intriguing athlete. That could be a day 2 guy the Lions may look at. As well as Armand Membao out of Missouri. He is another one that is a guard tackle combo. So kind of impressive there. He is in at 11. Into the top 10, Joshua Gray out of Oregon State. This is a good-looking guy, probably going in on day 2 here. Clay Webb, a dark horse from Jacksonville State as a center. He is in at number 9 as a guard. So we just missed out talking about him in our top 8. Guys that we will be hearing featured here momentarily, folks. Tyler Cooper out of Minnesota at 8. At 7, Miles Frazier out of LSU. At 6, Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. That's a guy that could be a day 2 pick for the Detroit Lions. In at 5, Connor Colby out of Iowa. And at 4, Luke Kandra out of Cincinnati. 3, Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia, and his teammate, number 2, Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. Their 2 starting guards are 2 and 3 respectively. And in at number 1, staying in the SEC, out of the Crimson Tide, a really interesting looking prospect, a guy that we would have to look no further than day 1 probably to get, Drew. That is Tyler Booker of Alabama.
Yeah, and let's jump in that, because I'll say this. Booker, clearly across all of the sites that we looked at and even our own scouting, he was consensus top 3 or even number 1 on most of them. Tyler Booker's a stud.
He truly is, Drew. He's got the big frame, the big modern athletic guards frame at 6'5", 325 pounds. He's from the Northeast, Coach Drew. He's over at from New Haven, Connecticut. Blood in the Streets in the town of New Haven, and they were created by Tyler Booker. He prepped at IMG down in Bradenton, Florida, so he played at an elite school and played against a lot of elite high-level competition. Was constantly being showcased down at that school. Came right out of the gates in Bradenton, made his way over to Tuscaloosa, and was a freshman All-American. So he got on the field early at Alabama, which is a real impressive thing. He's 2-time All-SEC football player. He was an All-American this year. Got over 1,750 reps at left guard in his career. So he's logged some good time there, but 150 at right guard. So he's positioned vertical between the guards, has gotten a little bit of left tackle as well. So we're talking about a guy that can do some utility work. He's given up 2 career sacks. Tyler Booker's the real deal, Drew. He's the real deal. Good chance they can't get to him at 28. There's a good chance of that. There also could be a chance he could sprinkle out there or be within grasp of a small trade up. But yeah. Tyler Booker is one of the offensive linemen. We've talked about 3 position groups so far. If the Detroit Lions were to invest day 1 capital, their names would be something like Calvin Banks. Probably not going to be able to get to him at that. He's probably too high up the board there. Or Tyler Booker.
He is a very special prospect. Talk about what you like, Coach.
Well, like I said, he can play both guard positions. He's got a lot of time at both, so he's pretty comfortable at left and right. And, so is Christian Mahogany. So is Graham Glasgow. We've got 2 other guys that can also do this, but that really is helpful in balancing out and shaping out an O-line when you have a guy that can go either or. Real coordinated puncher. He's got good hand timing. So, that really helps out with keeping the yellow flags in the holsters there of the referees there. that really yields to a lower penalty rate for those kind of guys that have the superior hand play. He's got that NFL size and frame, 6'5", 325, probably going to go up 5-10 pounds, get himself up to 335. And he really recognizes, so the blitz schemes and stunt schemes. You can see almost right here in this one, he's got a real wide base, kind of showing off that big, thick anchor right there. And at that position, he could really punch to the inside or get a good paw to the outside. Either or, he can see his head on a swivel. He's ready to go. Big, bullish anchor, both in the run and the pass. You can see it right there, pounding those feet into the ground. Can be a tough guy to knock back and stonewall. Can be a tough guy to get a pass rush and get a move on as well. He's a very good play side guard. It means you're going to run behind him. Okay, he's going to be a combo partner. He's going to be a double partner. He's going to climb and go up to the second level and get to linebackers. He's going to reach and get out in front of perimeter runs and get up and block downfield. He's going to do those kinds of things. And he's really, really good at it. He's a block finisher. He's a guy that blocks to the whistle. He'll make piles fall forward. He's also an impressive puller. Like we said, he can climb. Climb as a play side guy, but he can also be that backside guy and pull and be real effective in getting movement created that way too. He's a dynamo of a guard, Drew. He's a dynamo of a guard, but it doesn't go well. He's not. He's a human being. He's a human being. What are some things that might not be his forte at this point?
Well, the first thing is being this highly touted. He's going to start for whoever grabs him, and very likely, and that means an adjustment under fire. And that's in the NFL. So that's never
a young guy starting.
Yeah, and he's a junior, so it's never an easy thing to do. But I don't think we're very concerned about that. But it's something of always be aware of. You're starting a college junior at guard in the NFL. It's something you always have to be mindful of. His pad level can get a little high, so you can get maybe just out of sorts, maybe just out of focus a little bit at times, but I don't think it's for certainly not a lack of strength. And I really don't believe it's necessarily an endurance issue. He needs to continue to develop upon his agility and functional athleticism. So, and you articulated very well how big and strong he is, and he can move. There's no doubt about that. He's got to keep working at that because let's face it, man, when you're that big, anybody, if you want to stay flexible, you got to be working at it. You got to be constantly working at it. Shuttle drills, things like that. You've got to be good at that. And Tyler Booker's a hard worker. So again, these are things he's just get more like watch outs for Tyler Booker more than anything. He's got to continue upon development as a power guard. So we talked about he is a strong he's a bullish run pass anchor. And he's very good at moving, at pulling. He's very good. Like you talked about, Coach, how he you can run behind him, but the next thing to work on is to just be that power guard that when you want to run a power sweep or whatever, and you need those tough couple yards. Not that he can't get them, but that's something that maybe not his forte per se, but he's a very good player, but he's got to work on that. Refine the feet and drive technique. That goes hand in hand with it. You get the feet going, you get the drive technique going. He's going to become a tremendous power guard. Coach, I personally, everything we identify as red flags, I think they're very coachable, and I don't see an issue here with Tyler Booker. I think he's going to be a stud for 10 plus years.
100%, Drew. This kid is the real deal, and we talk about Penny Sewell's a power tackle. Okay, he's kind of a power tackle, a play side guy, right side by definition in our offense. He can play the left. They can move him around, but he's a power tackle. Tyler Booker's like that of a guard. I'm not saying that he is the Penny Sewell of guards, but he is that type of player. He is a true kind of play side guy where you would run into a vast majority. And I tell you what, if that was your right side of your offensive line, or eventually someday the left side of your offensive line was Penny Sewell and Tyler Booker, that is an investment into a side that could be really, really juicy. And could that happen? It all depends where Tyler Booker would fall. Tyler Booker could go into the low teens, 10, 11, 12, 13. He could be down in there. He could.
Yeah.
He's that kind of an athlete. Could he get into the 20s and into the middle 20s to where we could reach out and touch? Well, then we have a decision to make. If he's there at 28, got to look at the defensive talent on the board as well. Maybe we make a trade down and see where things happen and collect some more picks. But boy, would this guy look. We've got a lot of Alabama football players over here.
Nothing wrong with that.
And doing some, wearing the Honolulu blue and silver. I tell you what, Tyler Booker would look good wearing that Honolulu blue and silver. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a guy that, wears a little bit of red, some Athens, Georgia red, Drew. And he wears, there's a little gray and black with that as well. He's our number 2 guard. Take us away, Drew. Who are we talking about here?
Yeah, Tate Ratledge, the guard out of Georgia, 6'6", 320-pound senior, our number 2 prospect. I mean, this is a 4-star prospect. He's out of Rome, Georgia, so stayed at home, go to Georgia. Not a big deal. It's kind of like being from Detroit and going to Ann Arbor, right, Coach? That's right. It's not nothing wrong with that. 2-time All-American, 2-time All-SEC. He is the real deal. Now, he played offensive tackle and defensive end in high school. So what you like about that is the athleticism, and he knows defense as well. So that's a good thing to have in your back pocket when you're a guard. Obviously, he played high school basketball and track and field. This guy's an athlete, man, and he's a big load. 2,000 plus reps at right guard. He only had 4 career reps at left guard, but obviously it's something maybe not necessarily that they needed there, but I think Ratledge has some versatility there, and that's a good thing. Only 2 career sacks allowed, and that's the key there. In the SEC, 2 career sacks allowed. Now, you don't have to get much better than that, Coach. What do you like about Tate Ratledge?
Well, he does have the potential for good position versatility. Now, he's got 4 career reps as a left guard. You're drafting primarily a right guard at this point in time, but until you get some hand and feet, that's just some work away. In the professional game, he goes into rookie mini camp and goes through the OT, the off-season program, and works at it. He could come into camp and work himself through to where, maybe by middle of his first year, he could go either left or right, and be pretty comfortable at it. In year 2, be truly versatile enough to go left and right. So this is a little bit more of a work in progress, where Tyler Booker can probably go in there right away and play left and right. But he does have that. He has good potential for it. Another guy that's got his head on a swivel with a good frame. He's got big, long, 6'6", 320-pound frame, and he can pick up the blitzes and stunts with the best of them. Real good at that. That's a real across the board with these top guys. That's a keen thing that you'll see right across the board. Very good football IQ, head on a swivel, picking those kinds up. Very strong inside anchor. Okay, this is another guy that's kind of a power guard, so to speak. Real, physical, precise striker. Hands are in tight. He can punch inside those numbers, work towards a number with his hands. All the things that keep you hold free in the NFL. Another good climber. He's a combo partner. Another guy that's a good double teamer. Another block finisher. He can generate movement. So in some ways, he kind of fits the Lion bill here. He fits the Philadelphia Eagle bill. 6'6", 320, big, strong, physical, power guard, climbing, play side guy, Drew. What are some things that are drawbacks for Tate Ratledge?
Yeah, no, Coach, he's a great player, but he can get top heavy. You look at that picture, you notice he's a pretty thick guy up top. So he's got to watch out for that, certainly, especially in the NFL. He's got to keep his pad level low. Quickness and movement skills will be challenged. Much like we talked about Booker, Ratledge likely starts wherever he's drafted, likely. And again, that's going to be, even though he's been in the SEC like Booker, it's still another ball game when you go into the NFL. So that's something that any rookie's got to work on. He's got to become a hands master. You talked about making sure that technique's there and keep it inside so those flags don't come out. He's got to master that. No question about that. He's good. He's got to get better. Could struggle with nuanced pass rushers here. So again, he's a power blocker and he's a block finisher. No question about that. But some of these guys the hand technique on some of these D tackles is amazing. He's got to be able to handle that and show he can handle that. I don't think there were necessarily any red flags per se, but again, I don't know if he was challenged to that level either, and we didn't see as much of that with him. So it's kind of a question mark, if you will, more than a concern. Pad level can get high. Again, when you can get top heavy, it's because of that, and when it's a domino effect. So, Coach, I think you articulated that very well. He's an outstanding prospect. I wouldn't put him right with Booker. I think Booker clearly stands out amongst this group, But Ratledge is a very good player, and oh yeah, he would look good in Honolulu blue and silver, no doubt.
He would. And he's going to be someone that would probably be there at 28 because his position versatility is a work in progress. That's a developmental project still. He is a right guard. You're drafting a position strong player at this point in time, which is okay. Like I said, he's going to be able to play both sides as he develops. So I'm not so sure if the value is there at 28 for Tate Ratledge. I think if that was the case and Tate Ratledge was the guy that we wanted, we would be better off trading down to see if we could make that happen a little bit later into the first round or maybe even into the early second round and collect some more day 2 capital. Well, then maybe that's something that we do. But I do like Tate Ratledge as a guy. Do I like Booker a little bit more? Yes, but Tate Ratledge would be a real nice player, specifically at right guard. And I'd like to, if we can, Drew, talk about his partner at left guard.
Absolutely, Coach. Go ahead.
That is the number 3 guard on our board is Dylan Fairchild, Tate Ratledge's starting guard partner at the University of Georgia, 6'5", 315-pound junior. Another Georgia native. He comes from Cummings, Georgia. He was also a 4-star player. So another high-level recruit for Kirby Smart over at Athens. Big-time wrestling background. He was an outstanding high school wrestler, all-state wrestler in the state of Georgia. So this is a guy that uses his hands well. He's a grappler. He can move his feet well and positions well. These are things that really work well on line play. Whether you're an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, they translate typically very, very well. He played both ways on the Army Navy All-American game. So when we were doing our fantasy playoff draft, Drew, this guy was never leaving the field in one of those games that we were taking for granted on the TV there, because we're always doing our playoff fantasy redraft the day of the Army All-American game. All-American Bowl. But a couple years ago, Dylan Fairchild wasn't leaving the field in that doggone game. This year, had a big year this year. He had a big year this year. He was, 2024 All-SEC and All-American, 1,300 plus reps at left guard. He's gotten in a little right guard, primarily behind Tate Ratledge's, maybe he's a little bit of a backup or when he's had to come off the field. But he's been the guy on the other side for the last couple of years at left guard, and he's allowed 1 career sack. So Dylan Fairchild is another example of a Georgia Bulldog guard, Drew, that's going to be high up, probably in the early day 2 parts of the draft.
Yeah, no question about that, Coach. Let's talk about what we like about him. I guess I'll jump into this here. High-level effectiveness against NFL defensive line prospects. So we saw that on tape. We saw, obviously, at Georgia SEC. We talked about, Ratledge maybe not facing guys with the level of hand technique that he's going to encounter on a week-to-week basis. Fairchild seemed to, at left guard, for whatever reason, Coach, he showed a little bit more of that. So we like that. And I like to say that both Ratledge and Fairchild, we think there's potential for position versatility. They've taken some reps, but look at they were both each other's guard partners, so one wasn't going to unseat the other, so to speak, and they stayed healthy, thankfully. So they stayed where they were pretty much. But yeah, they both are capable, no question. He's quick and heady. He's a scheme processor. You were talking about football IQ with our other prospects. Dylan Fairchild checks that box. It absolutely. Pass pro maestro. He's an excellent pass protector. He's a consistent climber, so we like that. He knows where to go. He understands the defenses that he's seeing, and he has that high football IQ, and that's just a beautiful thing. Explosive and quick. So in order to be a consistent climber and have that high football IQ, you got to have that physical ability. He is explosive for a big man, 6'5", 315. Effectively agile. He may be the top pass blocking guard in this draft. And Coach, that's saying something. But that he is special in pass pro, no question. A two-way pass provides for masterful technique. Again, there's that football IQ and that understanding of the defensive side of the football. And Fairchild, like you said, in that All-American Bowl, he never left the field. He really has a very great understanding of the trenches. Smart guy. And that wrestling background is present in his hands. You can see it. They're strong, and he knows where to put them, and he knows how to strike with them. lot to like about Dylan Fairchild. I mean, you're splitting the hairs between he and Ratledge, but coach, he's got a few things he needs to work on. What do you see?
He's got to get pro strong. Okay, that's something that we're going to probably talk about a little bit more and more as we go here. The frame and just density of Dylan Fairchild as compared to Tate Ratledge is a little narrower. So he's going to have to bulk up a little bit. We're talking 10 pounds or so, to get where he needs to be. Is he a better backside guard? Probably at this point in time he is. He's more of a backside guy. So he's going to be the pull kick guy. He's a left guard, but you're going to have to scheme in certain ways and really maybe get him off the field at times if when you want to run hard power to the left, which you can do. Can that be a tendency, and could that be something that can be a giveaway to a defensive staff too? That's possible, but as he develops, that might have to be the case a little bit. He's more of a backside guy and develop into that true backside play side guard. He's got to become a hands master, and he has the capability of it. And we said how great his hands were over on the left side of things with the strengths, and that's just capitalizing on that. That's got to be his forte. He has got to become masterful in the way of using his hands and do that better than other people in the league. If he does that, he's going to be just fine. He's still considering a developmental player at Georgia. So he's definitely got tread on the tire and was still kind of growing as a player. So that's going to take place at the NFL level now too. So, I mean, if we're starting, this would be a guy, if he starts, there's going to be a hiccup or two, especially against some of the elite interior D-line talent. He's got to embrace becoming a master NFL technician right now so he can get on the field as early as possible. So these are the things that we're not saying that he's not capable of, but they're not quite there yet either in order for him to be what he needs to be. Is he ready? He's ready as a pass blocker. He's ready as a pass blocker today, Drew. He's ready to take on some pass sets. But as a run blocker, got some work to do. He's got some work to do. Would I love to see him? Sure. If we acquired some more day two capital, I could see it. But of the two Georgia cards, I think Tate Ratledge is a little bit more Detroit Lion than Dylan Fairchild is.
Yeah, more ready to take the field now. No question about that. And I think Fairchild's a player who would benefit greatly from a strong combine and pro day. I think if he's able to show something there, that's gonna lessen some of the not fears. There's no fear about drafting Fairchild. There's some concerns, and right. Just keys that he, like you said, things he needs to work on. But I like him a lot. But I agree. For some reason, I think you're right. It would be a situation where if they were to trade down and acquire an additional pick, and we're able to have a luxury pick in essence, that'd be a nice player to have right there. But they drafted Manu last year, and although Mahogany's possibly going to start next year, which is great. But you want
what guards are we going to draft?
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So but nice player. And again, we don't know what's going to how this is going to shake out. I mean, guys may leave, and then it becomes a necessity. So there you have it, Coach. Let's talk about our next prospect, our number 4 guard on the board.
Yeah. We're talking now. We're going to come back to the Midwest here, and a guy that a true local transferred back to the Queen City and played for the Cincinnati Bearcats. We're talking about Luke Kandra, 6'4", 323-pound transfer senior from Cincinnati. He was an all-state guard and defensive tackle at Elder High School, so he played at the biggest level in the state of Ohio. If you're all-state that level, you're one heck of a football player. Let me tell you, Drew.
Has a lot of
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of good football players in the state of Ohio, and a lot of big programs, and one of those 3 to 5 big cities you could say that, so to speak. Cleveland, Columbus, Cincy, Toledo, Dayton, all are football hotbeds. So I mean, and he comes from one of them in Cincinnati, and he was a doggone good one. Went to Louisville initially and played some football there, but transferred back to Cincinnati. And it clicked in like that and really became one of the best guards to ever wear a Cincinnati Bearcat uniform. He was a 2-time All-American. While at Cincinnati, he was 2-time All Big 12. He logged over 1,100 reps at right guard and about 90 at left guard. So going back to the right side here, as we talked about with Tate Ratledge, it doesn't have quite the experience Tate Ratledge has on the field, but a similar ratio in regards to right-left. He's got a little bit more left guard in him than Tate did, but again, heavier right-handed guard. So he's got position versatility, Drew. And you know what? He was rarely off the field for Cincy. He not. I mean, even when games were into the third, fourth quarter in hand, Luke Kandra was out there for them. He never left the field. Very reactive, twitchy out of his stance. So this is a guy who can get out of the stance and get things going. It's kind of a movement creator in that regard. He does, again, possess the true position versatility. He can play right and left. He's more of a right guard at first. Probably can play a little bit more left than Tate Ratledge now, because I'm not so sure Luke Kandra would be a guy you would be concerned about starting right away. So he can kind of cut his teeth as a backup swing guard left and right and kind of work at it. He did not get penalized much in college. I think just a handful of times. And I think over half of his penalties came at Louisville, where he played a lot less football. So he's a tremendous tactician, a tremendous technical football player. Just a true student of the game and a master tactician and a phenomenal, technical football player. Dream of a combo partner. This is the guy you want to go climb walls with if you're an offensive tackle, or double down if you're a tackle or a center. You want him right next to you. He's getting off. He's getting into that guy. He's going to be a partner you can really sink your teeth into. He's a road grading finisher. This is a run blocker first, Drew. A lot of things to like about Luke Kandra. Physical frame's a little different than some of the other prospects we talked about. What are some things here about Luke that are maybe limitations?
Well, he's pretty much maxed out. Now that's, he's 6'4", 323 pounds. He's a big boy, but he is maxed out. So to think that he's going to be able to put on another 20 pounds of quality weight, not likely at all. And it'd be very tough to put on any more muscle. But you know what? I mean, we like Luke Kandra a lot, but at that point, you just got to understand this is what you're getting here is pretty much the maxed out Luke Kandra. It's a good thing, but you're not going to be able to build on that necessarily. Must become more refined in pass protection. So we just talked about, one of the best pass blockers in the draft, potentially. Now we're talking about a guy, he's probably got to work on that a little bit more in Luke Kandra. He's got to work on leverage and functional agility. And that goes hand in hand. When you're in pass pro, you got to be really able to backpedal. You got to be really graceful. You got to be very, have good leverage and be able to plant and execute. He's got to work on that. He may struggle generating movement up front. It depends on how he gets off the ball. He's gonna have to show that he can punch hard quickly, get off the snap quickly. If he can do that, that'll work itself out. But right now, that's what we're kind of seeing. He really needs to develop upon his base and anchor. So again, you do that, that's where you're going to get that jump and that hop, those twitchy movements. That's going to help a lot. And really, he plays a very physical, rough style. So now he was able to avoid the laundry in Cincinnati, Coach. But the NFL is another deal too, and those guys know how to push your buttons, right? And that could happen. He's got to watch that a little bit. But I'm going to tell you what. On day 2, depending on how this draft shakes out, I really, really would like to see Luke Kandra as a Detroit Lion. I like him a lot. It just something about him on tape when you watch him. He has a commanding presence, I feel. What do you think?
Yeah, I think his upside, definitely. And he'd be a back day 2 guy, early day. We had that compensatory third rounder now.
Yeah,
for
101.
Glenn becoming the Jets head coach. So he could be a guy that would fall in and around that area, or early 4th round. That's kind of where you're looking at Luke Kandra. There are a lot of things that scream Detroit Lion about him. The advanced scouting will tell the tale. Things that I don't know. But with a maxed out frame, if he's struggling to generate movement and he plays, as reckless and as physical as he plays, it's going to be a quick 3 years, and he won't be here after that rookie deal. So I mean, that would be the thing that it would be the concern. Can he be a movement creator? Can he continue to be that road grader that he was? But he plays a style of football, Drew, that takes a lot of lead out of the pencil. It's hard on you. It's physical. So, with that being said, we're looking at a guy that could have that span of career that would be of the average 4 to 5 year category. Luke Kandra, checks a lot of boxes of a guy that could be like that. But at the same time, you could have a fan favorite of an offensive lineman and the Christian Mahogany of 2025 and Luke Kandra.
Yeah, that's a great comparison, Coach. Let's talk about our number 5 guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Drew. We're going back to the Big Ten, my friend. We're going back to the Big Ten and to the land of build it. They will come, aren't we going there?
Indeed, to Kinnick Stadium, right? Connor Colby, the guard out of Iowa, 6'6", 310-pound senior. This is a 4-star prospect out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, so you stayed close to home as well. 3-year starter, 3-time All-Big Ten player, 3-time academic All-Big Ten. There you go. You got to have those smarts up front, man. 2024, the All-American, 1,450 reps at right guard, nearly 700 reps at left guard and right tackle combined. Coach, that's versatility.
That's a little different, isn't it? For the what you see.
Little different. What do you like about Connor Colby?
Well, started 3 years. He's a seasoned veteran of the Big Ten, and he played in the 2024 Big Ten. I got to see him play myself over at Michigan State, and the Hawkeyes struggled that game and lost to the Spartans. But Connor Colby played against a lot of good football players this year and in the last 3 years. So he's played against really high caliber talent and been very successful All Big Ten player each year. He's another guy that's a head on the swivel player. He understands the blitz and the stunt schemes and the twists and the slants and those kinds of things very well. He picks up on blitz schemes really, really well. He's got plus feet and agility. He's got more of a longer frame. This is a kid that probably played at high school about 270, 280, and as a young man was probably more like in the 230s, 240s. Kind of a gifted, long, athletic player, and he's really fluid moving skills for a big 6'6", 310-pounder. Real good pass pro anchor, so he can kick and stand really, really well. Real good technical pass protector, so that bodes well for him. Another guy that's a great combo partner, that's a good climber or can post so the tackle can go climb and get to the second level, does those things really well. Drew has got some things to work on too, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit. Quick, strong defensive tackles might give him some problems. And we say that because, Connor Colby, let's face it, 6'6", 310 is a big guy, but we've been talking about guys, 330, 325, 330, right? So, you gotta be careful on that, and I'm not with his frame. Could he put more weight on? It's possible. I don't know if that would be helpful or harmful to him. I'm not sure, Coach. But he's not overly pro athletic. Works hard, but just doesn't have those physical gifts that just pop off the page, so to speak. But he's got to work on agility and movement skills. This is a guy that I think he's got to show something at his pro day and combine to really put some confidence in some of these coordinators and coaches and GMs. So he exhibits more stiffness than the previous prospects we spoke of. So you're going to see a little bit of that. So you're going to be taking a look at his hips, obviously, and how he just his shuttle drill, especially. That's going to be a big thing for him. Exhibits more stiffness. He can lunge and grab a little bit. He's got a tendency to do that. That can be coached out of him, but he's got to watch out for that. And limited movement creator he's kind of a limited movement creator at this point. And again, I think that kind of points to he's got to get a little bit stronger, Coach. So I like Connor Colby. I'm not sure I necessarily like him in Detroit. I think he's definitely a day 3 guy. What do you think?
Colby Sorsdahl type prospect with more athleticism. So what you have with him, and you see there are some things on both the strengths and weaknesses that kind of cross over. We say he has plus feet and agility and that he's a fluid functional mover, yet we also say that he has to work on his agility and movement skills. Those need to be his calling card, Drew. That's got to be his calling card. He needs to be a backside guard extraordinaire, and a guy that can help you play some offensive tackle, and do some different things in sub packages, and eventually become potentially a starting type guard. But what he is going to be, and maybe his greatest asset, is kind of a role guard, a backside guy that can get brought in to do some different things, can play some tackle, can be a depth piece, as he develops his anchor, and so he can be more of a versatile play side, backside guy. But that's kind of where I think Connor Colby is. He's got to make those movement skills his calling card and really kind of continue to work on that functional athleticism so he can grow his run anchor and be at least somewhat of a play side guard as well. That's how he could become a starter. This is probably a day 3, early day 3 guy. He could splash into the late day 2s because he's got a great frame, but I think he's going more of a day 3 guy. I think the next guy that you're going to be talking about, Drew, is definitely going on day 2. I think the next guy you're talking about is definitely going on day 2.
Yeah,
and this is also a guy that I could see wearing some Honolulu blue. Take it away, Drew.
I agree, Coach. Donovan Jackson out of The Ohio State University, the senior. He's 6'4", 320-pounder. Let's talk about him a little bit, Coach. 5-star recruit from Bel Air, Texas. So, he got recruited, but a 5-star recruit, obviously, you're gonna get a lot of attention from the big boys. And he went up to Ohio State. He excelled in track and field as well. That's a big thing. Obviously, part of the national championship team in 2024. He was also an All-American this season, 3-time All-Big Ten. He logged 1,900 plus reps at left guard, 500 plus reps at left tackle, and has played right tackle as well. That's great versatility, and that is a hell of a resume, Coach. There's a lot to like about Donovan Jackson. Talk about what you like.
Well, he's got a great anchor. He's got a real tight, strong, explosive anchor for a guy that's 6'4", 320. Another tight hand thrower. He gets those hands inside on those numbers, can work from one number to the next. They don't move. They stay in tight. And that's, you don't get called for holding if you do that. So he's got great hand placement. He's a great striker. Again, he's got that pro mass. He's 6'4", 320. We've talked about a lot of big guys. Colby's 6'6", 310. What are you talking about there, Shield? Just look at that photo right there. He doesn't look like he weighs 320 pounds. No, not at all. He looks like he weighs 250, 260 pounds. That is a tight-packed, dense frame. We're talking, Wolverine, and I don't mean to throw shade at him being a Buckeye, type density here. If you're a Marvel comic guy, thick and packed, strong. So, those are the type of bodies that can endure in the NFL. So that's something you got to look at too. How are they going to hold up? Because you get real long and lean and wide, you got a great anchor and base, but I tell you what, there's a lot of frame to beat up too. Calvin Johnson had a big long frame too, and they got pounded on for 8 years. Yeah. So that's something that with Donovan Jackson, I know we're talking about a guard here. He possesses the right kind of frame. Great fluid mover. He can pull. This is a guy that can do things as a play side and a backside guy as a guard, primarily a backside tackle because he was left tackle and possessed with this year on the national championship team, he played left tackle. Kind of had to come in there and do that because of injury and left the guard position. And did real well. Another guy that's adept at defensive recognition from multiple positional vantage points. He gets off the ball. He's got elite athletic ability for an interior offensive lineman, and he can play both guard and tackle, Drew. I really, really like Donovan Jackson as a guy for the Lions to look at on day 2. I really, really like, and I think he could be a guy that is a starter at times next year and definitely a starter for the future. And we can use that first-round draft pick on a defensive player. This is the guy that I would target. However, there are some things that we need to look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I'm in full agreement with you. I like him as much as I like Kandra. And possibly with that 3rd round pick, if like I said, if everything falls in line, that might be the direction to go. Donovan Jackson would be outstanding there as well. He is a bit stiffer in some of the other prospects that we're talking about today. So he's going to have to show something. He's going to have to show something in his pro day and combine to again, kind of squash that a bit. But that's what's on tape. So he's going to have to work on that. He seemed to be purely a guard in the NFL. So that doesn't mean he doesn't have versatility, but obviously to not be able to play tackle and guard or guard and center, he could play either guard, but that's kind of what he's being, that's what he's looking like in the NFL. Not a bad thing, though. Certainly not a bad thing in Detroit. Can get reckless and miss his targets. And that leads into when he can play at a high and he can play too high and he can lose leverage. He can get grabby and when he misses with his punch. So again, that all ties together. So it's almost like he kind of gets a little discombobulated when plan A doesn't work, plan B kind of gets a little sloppy, coach. I'm concerned about that, but talk about that. Is that something you can coach out of a guy?
Yeah, well, he plays with tremendous, with reckless abandon. He plays just, his football in the phone booth, and he's going at it so hard and quick. Yeah, there's some technique there that he can kind of be coached up on, and and tighten those kinds of things up. Hank Fraley could get him kind of set straight that way. We talk about how good his hands are when he does punch, but you know what? When we're talking a lot of those misses where it says he can get reckless and miss his targets, we're talking about that primarily as a puller and out in space. He can also mistime his angles as a climber a little bit, and that's when we see him grabbing. That's where we'll see him, do something uncharacteristic of what he would do on the line as an anchor run blocker when he climbs and has to go up top, over the top, or go up, or kick somebody out in a pull scheme. Does he get there? Does he strike home? Or his feet get the best of him at times and be out of position or mistime things a little bit. Those are some issues that Donovan Jackson had. And because of the injury sustained to Simmons, who we talked about, Josh Simmons at left guard or left tackle when he tore his knee against against Oregon, Donovan Jackson then became the left tackle for the remainder of the year as he got those left tackle reps. And they won a national championship with him playing left tackle. So, this is a guy that I really like as the value. I think he's a great fit within our draft. I may be wrong, but this is somebody I would really love to see wear our uniform, Drew. But you know what? There are other prospects. Yeah, and there's some of them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Drew, by the name of Miles Frazier that played left guard. We're talking about a little bigger guy now. Talking about a little bit bigger guy. 6'5", 335 senior. A big kid out of Camden, New Jersey. Didn't come to Baton Rouge right out of New Jersey. He went down over in the Florida International, I believe down in Boca is where that is. Mm-hmm. And that's where he played initially or in Fort Lauderdale. Sorry, Florida International's in Fort Lauderdale, and that's where he went initially. And he was great down there. Was a freshman All-American down there in the mid-major program at FIU. He's and then he transferred out and came over to Louisiana State pretty quick thereafter. 3-year starter for the Tigers. 1,800 plus reps at right guard, nearly 600 reps at left guard, nearly 100 reps at offensive tackle. So this is a truly position versatile kid and a big size. So this is a good-looking utility offensive lineman, Drew. What does he do well?
He does a lot well, Coach. First of all, like we talked about, great size, amassing 335 pounds at the present. Hint, wink, wink. He could put on a few extra pounds and still be very effective. That's scary. He's reliable and durable. He's not been significantly injured, so that's tremendous. He's an excellent run blocker. He's got great get off out of his stance. Gotta love that. And he's a movement generator. And that's the domino effect. You get that get off and you're strong and you got to get good punch. He's a movement generator up front. He handled sophisticated blocking schemes at LSU very well. So again, it's a complicated offense. Jaden Daniels, rookie of the year this year, right? That's where he came from. That's a great offense. Joe Burrow. It's a great offense. It's a pro offense. So he understands how to handle NFL offenses at least, and certainly it would have a good understanding coming in. He's got great strike and engage manner. That's again, we talked about that earlier, that get off. And again, he's position versatile and at a very high level of competition. This is SEC football. Coach, there's so much to like about Miles Frazier. What is it we got to look out for?
Well, I think we're talking about a play side guy. We're talking about a play side guy or a play side guy tackle type player as a utility guy. He's not the most nimble and the most finesse-footed football player. Not very fluid. So this is not a guy that's great in space. He's not an expert climber. He's a guy that's going to get down there and root in and knock a defensive tackle off the football. That is what Miles Frazier does best at this point in time in his career. Late to the party is a puller, a lot. And yes, there are some sophisticated blocking schemes that Brian Kelly, uses and executes for LSU. But I mean, he understood those. It's not like he didn't understand them. But he's not a natural puller. That's not in his forte in regards to his strengths at this point. Kind of locks in at offensive guard, which is going to limit some of that college position versatility. So I mean, we're kind of looking at a guy that's maybe not the most gifted pass setter, and he's also not the most gifted backside mover as well. So kind of a pigeonhole power guard. Be a heck of a guy to put out there in the tush push, Drew. So maybe the Philadelphia's got him all pegged where they're going to get him lined up in draft miles.
Never know.
His pad level can get a little sloppy, and he's got to work on the agility and athleticism to really maximize himself as a pro. Depth piece at this point, Drew. He's a depth piece, but he is a body extraordinaire. He's an NFL football player. He's on a 53-man roster next year,
and that's why he's likely. I was thinking 5th round. Right in that range there, maybe anywhere from the late 4th to early 6th is where I was kind of thinking where Frazier would go, Coach. I don't know how you're seeing him, but that's kind of
and he does. No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair, and he brings the power game to it right now. That's why he can hang and bang and play pro football. But as far as a body of work, he's a project guy. He's got work to do.
Now I like Miles Frazier, but the Lions have versions of him already on the team, so that. He's not.
He would definitely be that day 3 distant piece, and if we decide, we're moving on from a Colby Sorsdahl or that kind of a thing, and we want to do something different. Now this is the type of player we're looking at.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Exactly. Let's talk about our next prospect, Coach. Our number 8 guy.
Last guy before we get to the dark horses, Drew. He's a young man, another row the boat gopher. We talked about an offensive tackle by the name of Ariante Ursary. In that group. Well, here's one of his line mates here, Tyler Cooper, 6'6", 310, same size as Connor Colby over at Iowa. Senior guard for the Golden Gophers. Comes from St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. So he comes from the state to the east there, where he was a finalist for the state offensive lineman of the year. St. Croix Falls, he went to a tiny school. He went to a small school there. So for him to surface on that list, and I'll tell you what, there's many a fine offensive lineman playing at the University of Wisconsin, University of Minnesota, University of Iowa, University of Illinois, Northwestern University, Michigan State University, Purdue University, Indiana University from the state of Illinois. Or I'm sorry, state of Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Drew. Yep. And I left out many other great schools. That MAC schools that have Northern Illinois, Western, places like that have Wisconsin kids that start there. He's a real high caliber player out of high school going over to the Golden Gophers. Became an all Big Ten football player this past year. He was a 5-time academic all Big Ten selection. Wow. So he's a great student, smart kid, 1,100 plus reps at left guard. 250 career reps at right guard, so he's position versatile at the guard position. He also has 8 career reps at offensive tackle. He's played all those different positions and only allowed 3 sacks in his career. So it's taken Tyler a little time to get on the football field, which was apropos and par for the course throughout traditional development at the college level. At this day and age, we see the big studs get out there young. Tyler was more that work in progress, but he's shining now and is every bit the prospect that anybody else was.
Yeah, and coach, we like a lot about him. He picks up stunts and blitzes with the best. 5-time academic All-American. I mean, that all Big Ten, it tells you right there all you need to know. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's looking at. He knows how to handle it. He's a leverage wizard. So, and again, to be able to have that good leverage along with kind of being almost a step ahead of your opponent, it's like a chess game. That's it. Game over. Good overall technician. So he's very good at that. At recognition, he's good at executing, and again, he's great at leverage. So it's almost like, I don't know if he has I didn't even check if he had a wrestling background, coach, or not, but that's what that sounds like. We're talking about. So
yeah, he just keeps his anchor under him very well. Great balance. Yeah, that you would see in a wrestler.
Exactly. It always has met that metric or analytic data in high level competition. So he grades out well. You check out, it's like he's able to rise to the occasion when called upon. And he's a good puller. He's got a mean streak in the run game too. So you got to like that. Definitely we like that in Detroit. I know that. Long levers for an offensive guard. Got that length. So that's a good thing. He's versatile. He's a versatile guard. We know he can play both guard positions. He's a very good player, coach. What does he need to work on?
Well, his metrics stand out really, really well. So I mean, he played against some of the better teams. He metrically graded out really well in those games. So that helps him. But he's a limited starter. It's taken him some time to get out there and play for the Golden Gophers. Why is that? Well, there's somewhat of an injury history there too. So he's been a little bit banged up throughout his time at Minnesota. Not a natural movement creator. He doesn't get underneath. He isn't kind of that body type, like a Luke Kandra or a Donovan Jackson, 6'4", 320, leverage extraordinaire. Now, he plays with tremendous leverage. We talk about how well he is at playing with leverage. He's very crafty at it. That's something that he's got to take to the next level. He's got to be this crafty leverage guy that gets it done. That's the type of player Tyler Cooper could be, and he can play for a long time in the NFL that way. That's kind of how a Dan Skipper started. Ultimately, but maybe with a little bit more spice to his game. That's Graham Glasgow to a certain degree.
Oh, yep.
But what he's shown so far is that he can wear. He starts to play high when he wears down, which is very common from the common offensive linemen, which are things that need to refine and get better. Little bit of a limited athlete for the NFL, but not unathletic enough or where we wouldn't be talking about him. He certainly belongs on this list. Is he a guy that's going to be a long-time starter in the NFL? It doesn't project that way. Could be a great depth piece and a swing utility offensive lineman for a rookie deal, maybe +1 and get you 6 years or so. Oh, yeah, he could do that for sure. And could he log starts and be a nice football player? 100%. But this is kind of that project offensive lineman, Drew, that you see drafted on day 3.
I agree, Coach. Coach, we got about 1 minute here. Let's go through the dark horses real quick. You started off.
We got Jonah Savaiinaea out of Arizona. This is a big giant kid. I really, really liked him. I put him on here. I wanted him on here. Versatile between guard and tackle, Drew. He's quick and agile. He's a great pass protector at this point in time. He's not the most athletic guy. He can get a little plotty-footed. Got some work to do there. But a big, giant offensive lineman project that I like. Jonah Savaiinaea out of Arizona. Drew, the next one.
Yeah, Hayden Conner, the guard out of Texas, 6'5", 320-pound senior. He's had 50-plus starts at left guard for Texas. He's a good puller, really a premier pass protector. He does exhibit some stiffness. He's got to get pro strong, and he can get loose in technique a little bit and get a little over aggressive. But there's a lot to like about Hayden Conner, Coach. I see him definitely as a day 3 gem, if you will. Hey, Coach, excellent work today. Great job. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
Hey, this is a lot of fun. This is a position group we could be plucking from. So, Keep your eyes open.
Absolutely. For Coach Andy Shield, my name is Drew. Don't forget to check us out on the ESEN Network Roku channel at 7 p.m. on Saturdays every week. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast, and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.